Welcome in, everybody. We're diving deep into UK culture today.
Sounds fun.
We've got a whole bunch of sources lined up, talking about like food,
Okay.
festivals, royalty, even that classic British humor.
Right.
Ready to see what makes UK culture tick?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first we got to remember British culture isn't just one thing.
Right.
It's like a tapestry of all these different threads,
Yeah.
historical stuff, regions, and of course, immigration.
Makes sense.
So that complexity is what we'll be looking at.
Okay, so right off the bat, our sources point to the UK's multiculturalism, but it's not just like a modern mix, is it?
Exactly. It's way deeper than that. Goes all the way back to the British Empire as it expanded.
I see.
It brought back all these influences from around the world.
Like what?
Think about Indian spices ending up in British food.
Right.
Or Caribbean communities changing the UK's music and art.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't always smooth sailing, though sources mention tensions too. Integrating different cultures can be tough.
That's true. It's never really simple, is it?
Nope, not at all.
So it's like this always changing thing, trying to keep traditions while taking in new stuff.
Yeah, that's spot on. That tension shows up everywhere in UK culture. Take language, for example.
Okay.
Even within English, there's a crazy amount of accents and dialects.
It's true.
You've got that classic Cockney accent in London, then that almost singing Welsh way of talking, and who could forget the Scottish brogue?
Oh, yeah. So many different ways of speaking.
All those different sounds tell you a lot about the regions that make up the UK.
That's so cool how language really shows where you belong or where you're from.
It's a powerful thing.
And speaking of things that are distinct, the sources really get into British food. Obviously, there's the classics like fish and chips, Sunday roasts, what else? Bangers and mash.
Oh, yeah, but those are just the tip of the iceberg these days.
What do you mean?
The UK has embraced cuisines from all over the world because of their multicultural population.
That makes sense.
So Indian curries are a national favorite now, and you can find pretty much anything. Italian trattorias, Thai street food, you name it.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a real melting pot of flavors, shows how open the UK is to global stuff.
It's like they're saying, hey, bring your culture over here. Let's mix things up.
Exactly.
Now, we can't talk about tradition without mentioning afternoon tea, right?
Of course not.
I'm picturing little sandwiches, warm scones, clotted cream, those fancy pastries. But it's not just about the food, is it?
Definitely not. It's a whole ritual steeped in meaning and history.
How so?
It's about taking a break, connecting with people, having a good chat. It's all about manners and being welcoming, which the British are known for.
Yeah, I see.
Even the way they make and pour the tea, the order they serve the food, it's all about tradition and ceremony.
It sounds so elegant, but also really warm.
You got it.
And you know what else screams tradition? The British monarchy.
Ah, yes, of course.
Such a strong symbol for the whole country, right?
Absolutely. It's a direct link to the past, a thread running through British history for centuries.
Wow.
Provides a sense of stability. Even though times change, the monarchy is always there.
Right, it's a constant.
And the sources say they've adapted too. They're not stuck in the past.
Oh, interesting. How do they do that?
They talk about modern issues, support charities, and they're even on social media connecting with people.
Huh. So they balance the old ways with the new world.
They do. It's like a paradox.
That's a good way to put it. And that kind of sums up UK culture, right?
In a way, yeah, holding on to what's familiar while being open to what's next.
It's a cool mix.
For sure.
Speaking of what's next, we got to talk about the UK's impact on music globally.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's huge. We're talking the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Queen,
Right.
Bowie, Adele. I mean, the list goes on and on.
And it's not just the big names. What's really interesting is how the UK has been at the forefront of so many musical trends.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Think about the British invasion in the 60s, punk rock in the 70s, Britpop in the 90s. These weren't just music. They reflected what was happening in society at the time.
Right. It was about more than just the songs.
Exactly. They were challenging the rules, shaking things up.
It seems like the UK is really good at mixing tradition and rebellion in a way that connects with everyone around the world.
Yeah, they take something familiar and turn it into something new and exciting.
Like some kind of magic formula.
You could say that, and that creative energy isn't just in music either.
Oh, where else?
Think about their theater scene. London's West End is famous worldwide. They have art institutions like the Tate Modern, and don't forget their literary history.
Wow, so much art and culture.
From Shakespeare to Jane Austen to J.K. Rowling, it's a legacy that keeps inspiring people.
They've given us some truly incredible stories and characters.
And speaking of stories, let's talk about pubs.
Okay.
They're more than just places to drink. They're like community centers.
Yeah, I've heard that.
People go there to hang out, catch up on news, connect with their neighbors. It's where they debate things, have some laughs, and even get competitive with pub quizzes.
Sounds like fun.
It really embodies that British community spirit, you know?
Right. Everyone coming together.
And speaking of coming together, let's talk about festivals. They're a huge deal in the UK, and they celebrate all sorts of things.
Like what kind of festivals?
Well, there's the big ones like Glastonbury for music lovers, or the Hay Festival for bookworms.
Yeah.
And then tons of local festivals celebrating everything from food to folk traditions. It's all about shared experiences, you know, celebrating things together.
I like that.
Which brings up an interesting question, like, what is it about British culture that makes them love festivals so much?
I don't know.
Is it a chance to break free from that reserved British image?
Maybe.
Or maybe it's a need to connect and celebrate in a society that values individuality.
That's a good point.
It's something to think about as we go deeper into UK culture.
Definitely lots to unpack there.
Yeah, it's a good question to think about. And this idea of shared experiences, it kind of connects to how much emphasis the UK puts on education.
Okay, how so?
Well, the sources talk about places like Oxford and Cambridge. They're not just universities. They're woven into British history and identity.
You can definitely feel that weight of history. And it's cool how the UK education system gets praised for focusing on critical thinking and creativity. Those are super valuable skills these days.
Exactly. And the sources emphasize that critical thinking isn't just memorizing facts. It's about questioning things, analyzing information, forming your own opinions.
Right. It's about digging deeper.
Exactly, looking beyond the surface. And when it comes to creativity, it's not just about art. It's about finding new solutions to problems, thinking outside the box.
Right. Being innovative.
Exactly. And it sounds like their education system aims to create well-rounded people.
Yeah, giving them both knowledge and the tools to think for themselves.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of well-rounded, the UK loves its sports.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Football especially. I mean, they call it football, but you know what I mean.
Oh, I know. It's practically a religion over there.
It really is. The rivalries are legendary. Manchester United versus Liverpool, Arsenal versus Tottenham. The passion is incredible.
I've seen it. It's intense.
The sources talk about how supporting your local club is like family pride match day is a ritual, something that brings everyone together.
Shared experience.
Exactly. And it's not just the professional leagues either. The sources mention how important local clubs and amateur leagues are too.
So it's about more than just the big games.
It's about community spirit and staying active.
It's amazing how sports can bring people together, you know, no matter what their background is.
It creates a sense of belonging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And besides football, there's cricket, rugby, tennis. Wimbledon is huge, a global event.
It really is tradition and athleticism all rolled into one.
So cool. And we can't forget about British fashion, another area where the UK has influenced the world.
Right. It's a style that's both classic and modern heritage and innovation.
I think of designers like Alexander McQueen and Vivienne Westwood pushing boundaries in those classic British looks. The Burberry trench coat, those tailored suits.
It's very iconic.
The sources say British fashion is more than just clothes. It's an attitude.
It's about expressing yourself and being creative.
Right? Having that effortless, cool, that sophisticated look.
And of course, we got to talk about British humor.
Oh, yeah, it's unique.
Dry, witty, often self-deprecating. It's subtle and subversive.
It's not always the easiest to get.
The sources talk about how it uses irony, understatement, and that deadpan delivery.
It's not always about laugh-out-loud jokes.
Right. It's about understanding the absurdity of things, observing everyday life with a wink.
Like those classic shows, Monty Python, Fawlty Towers.
Exactly. They capture that British sense of the ridiculous, and it's not just in comedy shows, is it?
No, I don't think so.
It's in how people interact, how they handle awkward situations, how they make fun of themselves.
It's like a subtle but sharp kind of humor.
And maybe it shows a certain resilience, you know, a way to deal with life's craziness with a straight face and a little smile.
Like humor's a coping mechanism.
You could say that now, let's shift gears a bit. The UK is a country full of history.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Stonehenge, Buckingham Palace, Edinburgh Castle, those places hold centuries of stories.
It must be amazing to be surrounded by so much history.
The sources say history isn't just something you read about in the UK, it's something you experience.
That's so cool.
It's in the buildings, the streets, the old ruins. It's a history that's both grand and personal, from kings and queens to everyday people who shaped the nation.
Wow. And speaking of stories, The UK has a huge film and TV industry.
Oh, yeah, they've got some amazing shows. Doctor Who, Sherlock, Downton Abbey. Those have captured audiences all over the world.
It's true. Those shows often reflect British culture,
Yeah.
its values and its complexities.
Exactly. They explore themes of tradition and modernity, social class, national identity. Doctor Who, for instance, blends sci-fi with social commentary. It's become a global phenomenon.
I love that show. And we can't forget about the UK's literary legacy.
Of course not. Shakespeare, Jane Austen, J.K. Rowling, they've given us some of the most beloved stories ever.
Truly timeless classics.
It seems like storytelling is a big part of British culture, whether it's through books, movies, or TV. They know how to tell stories that connect with people across generations and cultures.
That's a great point. Okay, switching gears again. The sources also talk about how important environmental awareness and sustainability are becoming in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. There's a growing awareness of climate change and a push for more sustainable practices.
It seems like people are really starting to pay attention to those issues.
The sources mention things like reducing carbon emissions, promoting renewable energy, and encouraging eco-friendly lifestyles.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
Exactly. This shift towards sustainability is everywhere, from government policies to individual choices.
That's great to hear. It shows they're thinking about the future.
It does, and maybe it also shows a deeper connection to the land, a realization that protecting nature is crucial for everyone.
For sure. And speaking of nature, the UK's countryside is famous for its beauty.
It really is, those rolling hills, dramatic coastlines, charming villages. It's a landscape that inspires a sense of peace.
It sounds so idyllic.
The sources describe a culture where people value being outdoors, whether it's hiking in the Lake District, walking through a national park, or just having a picnic in a local park.
It's about appreciating the simple things.
Exactly, recognizing that nature is a great escape from the stress of modern life.
It sounds like the British countryside offers a sense of calm and connection to nature that's deeply rooted in their culture.
Yeah, it's a big part of who they are. And speaking of deeply rooted, we can't forget about the British weather.
Oh yes, the infamous British weather.
It seems to be a topic that comes up all the time, doesn't it?
It does, maybe because it's so unpredictable and it really affects daily life.
The sources suggest that the British weather, with its constant changes and rain, has made people resilient.
They've learned to adapt.
And they have a good sense of humor about it, too. It's also led to a deep appreciation for those sunny days. A willingness to enjoy being outside whenever they can.
It's interesting how the weather can shape a culture's attitude.
It really can. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of British culture. Their reputation for politeness and etiquette.
Oh yes, the please and thank yous and the queuing.
The sources describe a culture where manners matter, where being polite shows respect and consideration for others.
It's about being mindful of others.
Exactly. It's about following social norms, respecting personal space, and being well-mannered in public.
So there's a big emphasis on social harmony, creating a sense of order and politeness in everyday life.
And while some might find this formality a bit much, others appreciate the courtesy and consideration it brings.
It's a good reminder that what's polite in one culture might be seen differently in another.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of cultural traditions, the UK has some unique ways of celebrating holidays.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, think about Christmas crackers, Easter egg hunts, bonfire night. Each one has its own history and meaning.
Those are so fun and unique.
These customs are passed down through generations, creating a sense of continuity and shared experience.
Right, it connects them to their heritage.
And maybe it offers some comfort and familiarity in a world that's always changing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Finally, let's talk about the UK's long history of innovation.
Oh, yes. From the Industrial Revolution to advancements in AI and renewable energy, they've always been pushing forward.
They're always coming up with new things.
The sources describe a nation with a real spirit of ingenuity, a willingness to experiment, and a drive to push boundaries.
They're not afraid to try new things.
Not at all. This innovative spirit is everywhere, from scientific discoveries to technology to art to business.
It's like they're always looking for the next big thing. Yeah, it's like they have this built-in need to explore and create. Makes you wonder what they'll come up with next.
It does, and as we look back at everything we've talked about today, I think it's clear that the UK is way more than just those typical stereotypes.
Right, it's so much deeper than that.
It's a country with a super rich culture, a mix of old and new, a drive to innovate, but also a respect for tradition.
We've covered a lot, haven't we? History, food, music, humor, their love for the countryside, and that politeness you can't miss.
We have. It's been a fun journey. So as we wrap up, what are your biggest takeaways? Anything that really stuck with you?
I think for me, it's how the UK manages to balance tradition and modernity. They're proud of their history, but they're not afraid to move forward and embrace new things.
It's that dynamic that makes them so interesting.
Exactly. And we can't forget about all the different influences that have shaped the UK.
Right. It's a nation built by immigration, cultural exchange, and a willingness to see things from different perspectives.
It's like a melting pot of cultures.
And that's reflected in their art,
You know,
music, food, everything.
It's part of their identity. And of course, we have to mention that British humor.
Oh, yes. It's a
Yeah.
classic, dry, understated, and often making fun of themselves.
It's a unique style.
It shows a certain resilience,
Yeah.
a way to deal with life's ups and downs with a bit of irony and a smile.
Like their secret weapon.
You could say that, so we've explored all these different sides of UK culture. Now here's something to think about. Imagine yourself stepping into a traditional pub.
Oh, okay. I can picture it.
You've just spent the day exploring those beautiful rolling hills. You find a cozy spot, a pint of ale in hand, and the smell of Sunday roast fills the air.
Sounds amazing.
What part of British culture would you want to experience the most? What speaks to you the most? What will you explore further?
That's a great question. Something to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into UK culture.
It's been a pleasure exploring all this with you.